Hello all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page International. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. The German elections have just ended and Angela Merkel's CDU-CSU party has suffered its biggest defeat since World War II. The new government is composed of many different parties. Germany is the most populous country in the European Union, one of the pillars of the European economy and a major force on the international stage in the triangle of Europe, the United States, and China. Germany's position is pivotal. What direction Germany takes next will affect the future of the world. Okay, let's get into it. In the early morning of September 27th, Germany's federal election results were announced. The Social Democratic Party, the SPD, narrowly defeated Angela Merkel's Christian Democratic Union and Christian Social Union, the CDU-CSU, and the coalition government it controlled. This signals the end of the 16-year Merkel era. The SPD received 25.7% of the vote, while the conservative bloc CDU-CSU received 24.1%. The Green Party came in third with 14.8% of the vote. The Liberal Free Democratic Party, the FDP, received 11.5%, and the right-wing Alternative for Germany, the AfD, came in at 10.3%. Both the SPD and the CDU-CSU have expressed their desire to lead the next government. The SPD Chancellor candidate Olaf Scholz said many citizens have voted for the SPD because they want a change of government and because they want the name of the next chancellor to be Olaf Scholz. But 60-year-old CDU-CSU Chancellor candidate Armin Laschet claimed that no party, not even the SPD, could claim a mandate to govern from Sunday's vote outcome. No one wants a repeat of the embarrassing grand coalition of the past 4 years, so forming a new coalition government could take months and would require smaller parties like the Greens and the FDP to join. The focus now is on who can bring in more allies. Both parties aim to reach an agreement to form a ruling coalition before Christmas. Based on the current election, Germany's future government could be composed of 3 parties, which would break from the usual practice of having 2 parties in power. Who becomes chancellor is still unknown. There are no specific rules for cabinet negotiations in Germany, and it is usually the first major party that starts the negotiations and tries to form a government. But the SPD's advantages is somewhat weak, and it is not clear whether the negotiations will go smoothly, so there is still a ray of hope for the conservative bloc. Germans have 2 votes per voter, one for the direct candidate in their constituency and the second for the political party. A coalition government is produced through the principles of majority rule and proportional representation. Any party that receives more than 5% of the vote is guaranteed a seat in the federal parliament or Bundestag. Only once a new government is formed does the Bundestag elect a chancellor. This is usually the leading candidate of the coalition partner in the newly formed government. In order to be elected, a candidate for chancellor needs an absolute majority of the votes cast. The 2017 coalition negotiations were the longest in German history, leaving Germany without a government and without a chancellor for nearly 6 months. Merkel's policies are already considered leftist by American standards, but by German standards, her CDU represents conservative Christian values. The CDU's election platform for 2021 is about maintaining Germany as an industrial base while still focusing on climate protection. There should be no tax increases, but there should be no significant reductions either. On the more conservative side is the Alternative for Germany, the AfD, a party considered to be right-wing populist. In its election platform, the AfD wants to abolish family reunification for refugees and protect Germany's borders with physical barriers such as a border wall. The Free Democratic Party, the FDP, stands for liberal values and opposes state intervention in areas such as the economy. In its election platform, the FDP supports pension reform and the elimination of EU subsidies for German agriculture. The AfD and the FDP both received around 10% of the vote this time. Compared to the 2017 election results, FDP is almost unchanged, and the AfD's share of the votes increased by 2.1%. The Christian Democrats, the CDU's main opponent, is the Social Democrats, the SPD, which Germans see as left of center and clearly more left than the CDU. The party wants to replace low insurance with universal bonus and to reform the income tax and make Germany climate neutral by 2050. Further to the left than the SPD is the Left Party, formerly known as the Socialist Unity Party of Germany, which advocates socialism. The Left Party calls for higher social benefits and higher taxes for the rich. In addition, the party opposes military missions abroad and wants to abolish NATO. Compared to 2017, the SPD increased by 4.5% of the votes, and the left-wing party dropped by 4.2 points. This means that the radical left has fewer supporters, but society as a whole is still moving to the left. The Green Party, which favors environmental protection, has also increased its share of the vote and is now in third place, reflecting the increased importance Germans place on environmental protection. So far, both the SPD and the CDU candidates have said they want to negotiate to form a government, although there may be a theoretical possibility of forming a grand coalition government again. Neither party is willing to work together anymore. Voters do not want to see another coalition government either, but the odds are there will be a three-party coalition in power. FDP leader Christian Lindner revealed on election night that he intends to sit down and talk with the Greens to sort out their respective policies before entering into possible cabinet negotiations. It is not easy for the Greens and the FDP to get together, as the two parties are far apart in their governing philosophies. In the 2017 cabinet formation negotiations, the CDU tried to form a government with the FDP and the Greens, but in the end, the FDP was unwilling to give up its principles and preferred to opt out of forming a cabinet, which is why a grand coalition government was formed afterwards. The Green Party is clearly more compatible with the SDP in terms of political views. The FDP, on the other hand, is more inclined to form a cabinet with the CDU, so the negotiations are still underway. According to the pollster Forza, 30% of voters want to see the CDU form a cabinet with the FDP and the Greens, and 40% want to see the SPD join forces with the Greens and the FDP. The Greens and the FDP are not without common ground, as both parties are relatively hardline in their approach to the Chinese Communist Party. The chair of the German Federal Parliament's Human Rights Committee is FDP member Guy Jensen. She has explicitly criticized the CCP for crimes against humanity in Xinjiang and has supported human rights activities in Hong Kong. Reinhard Budikofer, a Green lawmaker who chairs the EU parliamentary delegation on China, has also taken a tough stance against China. He opposes the EU-China Comprehensive Investment Agreement and has pushed for sanctions against CCP officials. He himself has been targeted by the Chinese regime for his views. In a pre-election Forza poll, 58% of Germans believe that the government should take a tougher stance against the CCP than before and should defend Germany's interests more aggressively, even when bilateral relations might suffer as a result. The CDU's attitude towards the CCP has been somewhat moderate, and the SPD's attitude towards the CCP is still not clear. However, the current general trend in Europe as a whole is getting colder towards China, and so is the German public's opinion. So whatever the new German government might look like, it's likely to be tougher towards the CCP. Before we move on, our main front page channel is back online. We were suspended for 2 weeks for misinformation. Our content is not extreme, but truthful information and rational thoughts that everyone should know about, including all those who work in big tech. So this is why we stay on YouTube, despite the censorship and demonetization. Many of you have asked us to head to other platforms. We actually do upload to places like Rumble and YouMaker. You can check the links in the description below for all the social media and other platforms that we are on. We stay on YouTube because everybody deserves to know the truth, and we need people like you to help spread the truth. So please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this channel with your friends and family. We here at Front Page thank you for your support. Okay, let's get back into it. Angela Merkel didn't run for election this time, so no matter how the new government forms its cabinet, the first female German chancellor after 16 years in office will be leaving. If the next government is not confirmed by the end of this year, Merkel will also break another record, becoming Germany's longest-serving chancellor. Reviews of her are divided, with some arguing that her 16 years in power have put a deep mark on Germany's domestic and foreign affairs, compared with continued economic prosperity and an increase in Germany's global influence. Others believe that although she was in a right-of-center party, she pursued leftist policies that actually hindered Germany's long-term development. Born in West Germany and raised in East Germany, Merkel obtained a doctorate in quantum chemistry and worked as a research scientist. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of East Germany in 1989, Merkel left the laboratory and began a career in politics. Under the guidance of the Unification Chancellor Helmut Kohl, Merkel rose through the ranks. Kohl admired Merkel and played the role of her political godfather. In the late 1990s, Kohl was embroiled in a party funding scandal and refused to disclose the names of his donors. Merkel advocated the CDU to split from Kohl, and in December 1999, Merkel dealt Kohl a fatal blow when she wrote in a newspaper announcing her disassociation from Kohl. He was forced to resign from his post as honorary chairman of the CDU and faded away from politics. The following year, Merkel successfully rose to the top. She was elected president of the CDU and ascended to chancellor in 2005. Years later, the German media commented that Merkel stabbed Kohl in the back during his dark moment while embroiled in a scandal. Merkel's impression is always one of plain clothes, a stable personal life, calm and sensible. She was never fierce and impassioned during a speech. She is perceived as politically unbeatable and a solid figure, but she had many rivals in her party, but none of them were able to bring her down. In 2012, Christian Wolff, the president she strongly recommended, was forced to resign after less than 2 years in office due to bribery allegations. With so many of these things happening, Merkel seems to be immune to any scandal. She even has the ability to turn scandals to her advantage. Merkel's style is defensive, and she does not take initiative to attack. Some media analysts said that she is, after all, a doctor of science, so she thinks comprehensively and calmly analyzes things. But also because she excessively analyzes, she is slow to take action and has been criticized for dragging her feet and making things stagnant. The result of this delaying tactic is that sometimes her competitors reveal their own weaknesses and fail, and sometimes because of the delay, things come to fruition naturally and no action is required. Merkel's 16 years in office have been marked by a number of major historical events. There are several incidents that have had a profound impact on Germany because of her decisions, including the financial crisis, the euro crisis, and the refugee crisis. In 2009, the financial crisis shocked the world and triggered the euro crisis in Europe. Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece were in a financial mess. Merkel advocated saving the euro. She said saving the euro is a no-choice choice because if the euro fails, Europe fails. She upset many Germans with this view. These people formed a new conservative party, the Alternative for Germany Party. Today, the AfD is one of the most powerful opposition parties in Germany, with support in some states even surpassing that of the CDU. Merkel's tough attitude in forcing other crisis countries to reform during the euro crisis showed her Iron Lady side. The Greeks even called her a Nazi. In March of 2011, after the earthquake and tsunami shocked the world at the Fukushima nuclear power plant in Japan, Merkel quickly decided to make an energy transition and withdraw from nuclear power. Germany shut down its first nuclear power plant just 6 months later. She was quicker in withdrawing from nuclear power than the Greens, who advocate for environmental protection policies, but her renewable energy policy was a failure. To this day, the green energy industry she envisioned has not flourished in Germany. Germany pays hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation to nuclear power companies, and the renewable energy industry is unable to provide a steady supply of sufficient electricity. Germany's electricity costs remain high, and there is even the possibility of a power crunch in the next few years. In September of 2015, Merkel took the liberty of opening the borders to refugees, causing a tidal wave of Syrian refugees to flood into Germany. The influx of refugees has been followed by a succession of sexual assaults and terror attacks in Germany. A year later, in December of 2016, a Tanzanian refugee coordinated a terrorist attack at a Berlin Christmas market, killing 11 people and injuring at least 55 others. These incidents of refugee crimes have caused great discontent among the German public. The current treatment of Afghan refugees has provoked even more opposition with the German government for not putting the interests of its own people first. People have denounced Merkel as a chancellor, not for Germans, but for refugees. Germany and the Chinese Communist Party have established close ties. Merkel visited China 12 times during her 16 years as chancellor. From 2014 to 2019, Xi Jinping and Merkel met on average once a year. When Merkel first came to power, her attitude towards the CCP was in stark contrast to her pro-communist predecessor, Gerhard Schröder. Merkel insisted on talking to the CCP about human rights. At the time, many media outlets commented that she had started a new paradigm in China policy. Schröder focused on economics and trade and avoided human rights. Even when he did talk about human rights, he did so behind closed doors. Merkel, on the other hand, adopted a two-pronged approach during her second visit to China in 2007. She wanted both trade and human rights. Merkel pressed the then head of the CCP, Hu Jintao, on human rights and press freedom, but did business as usual with China. After Merkel's first visit with China, Sino-German trade reached $78 billion in 2006, an increase of over 23% from 2005. In 2007, Merkel angered Beijing when she met with the Dalai Lama at the Chancellery in Berlin. At that time, Merkel responded firmly, saying, "Where and with whom I meet is my business, and no one needs to tell me what to do." In 2008, when Merkel did not attend the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics, Sino-German relations hit rock bottom. As the financial tsunami hit the world in 2009, followed by Europe's deep euro crisis, Merkel looked to China for help, and her criticism of the CCP's human rights violations gradually changed tone. During Merkel's visit to China in 2012, her plans to meet with Chinese dissidents were derailed by the CCP, but she did not protest. The economic result of this visit were huge, with 13 cooperation agreements signed in Beijing totaling nearly $7 billion in commercial cooperation and 50 Airbus aircraft ordered by the Chinese side. Merkel's attitude towards the CCP has shifted from assertiveness to appeasement, and it continues to this day. In September of 2019, Merkel kicked off her last official visit to China with a large delegation. The final stop was Wuhan, where she cut the ribbon to inaugurate the new local factory of the German auto parts company Webasto. In less than 3 months, Wuhan became the world's focus as COVID-19 swept the world. The employees of the company where Merkel cut the ribbon were also the first to contract COVID-19 in Germany. Webasto brought the infectious virus back home, threatening German lives and hitting the German economy. Merkel is a leading figure in the appeasement policy of Germany and the EU, and she is the driving force behind the China-EU investment agreement. As the CCP instated the national security law in Hong Kong to test the international community, Germany did not make any move to sanction the Chinese Communist Party. Moreover, Merkel issued a statement stressing that China is a partner to be valued by the international community and that Germany will strengthen its cooperation with China in the fields of security, health, and economy. Her emphasis on close economic and trade relations between Germany and the CCP has drawn criticism from the United States, the European Union, and some domestic camps. Critics criticize that she worships and relies on China's economic power, sacrificing human rights for the sake of trade. Merkel underestimates and even ignores the threat to the Western democratic world posed by authoritarian countries such as China and Russia. During Merkel's administration, German-U.S. relations have cooled down. She herself was once an enthusiast of U.S. transatlantic policy, but after Presidents Bush and Obama pursued a strategy of shifting the focus of foreign policy to Asia, differences between Germany and the United States emerged, and relations turned cold. Sacrificing morals to work with the CCP may seem profitable in the beginning, but we are starting to see the cracks in the Chinese economy. We did a deep analysis on the recent Evergrande and HSBC crisis in China and how that affects global finance. I want to share the trailer with you. Caught in the middle of the growing tensions between the US and China's communist regime, HSBC decided to pull out of the US market. However, just as HSBC made its decision, China's Evergrande is on the verge of bankruptcy. Mainstream media has been abuzz about China's real estate giant as it is likely to evolve into a Chinese Lehman Brothers moment. Evergrande's default will not only cause the collapse of China's economy, but will also have a huge impact on global finance. The withdrawal of a bank from the United States seems like it has little impact on our lives. The right or wrong decision affects only the bank itself. The next global financial crisis is also out of our control, but we can learn how to protect ourselves from losses. The HSBC story has confirmed that the conflict between the CCP and the free world is becoming increasingly severe, and we all have a choice to make. You can watch the full episode on our membership site, frontpageshow.com. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.